So one of the key ideas of a lean production philosophy is the idea of the 7 wastes. When the whole lean philosophy was developed by Tachi Ono, the Toyota engineer after World War II, he went to a Ford factory and he looked at this huge mass production environment and he said, well, this is very efficient, but there's a lot of waste. So one of his big contributions to manufacturing was the idea that one of the most important things you can do is eliminate waste. And waste is anything that you do which doesn't need to be done for the purposes of the end client. So anything that adds time and effort and cost to a product which doesn't make the product better for the client is waste. So he identified 7: inventory, waiting, motion, transportation, fixing mistakes, over-processing, and overproduction. One of the 7 wastes which Ono identifies is inventory. An easy way to look at it would be, for example, my sheet goods and plywood that I make cabinets out of. Now, I have a company policy of never having more sheet goods in storage than I can fit on this one rack, which is about, in the case of MDF, 10 sheets. This maple, about 10 sheets, about 6 or 7 sheets of those. I never want to have more than that in storage at any one time. It's enough to do a small project on the spur of the moment, but if I have a big kitchen, I'll just order another big load. Now, some people might say, hey, if I bought 100 sheets of MDF, I might save $5 a sheet. But the problem would be, if I bought 100 sheets of each of the items on this thing, I'd need another shop just to store all that material. And that would cost me another several $1,000s a month, and material would get damaged and wasted. So inventory, always keep it to a minimum. On these little bins, in terms of smaller items, the policy is never have more than will fit in one of these little bins. Because there again, batteries, these little batteries, if I had too many of these, they'd just get wrecked anyways. The charge would die. So I always keep it to a minimum. And one of the ways of keeping this whole bin system working is these cards, Kanban cards, which help the ordering process, so we always have enough, but we never have more than will fit in this little bin. One of the big wastes identified by Tachi Ono is waiting. For example, when we start the edge bander, it takes a few minutes, 15 minutes to warm up. So what you don't want to be doing while you're waiting for it to warm up is this. Okay, that's just stupid. If you're waiting for the edge bander to warm up or paint to dry or a delivery, go and find something else to do. So in a cabinet shop, there's always 1,000 things that need to be done. So there's never any need to be sitting around waiting. Up here on this door we have daily clean. Here's a whole folder full of checklists of things that need to be cleaned and fixed up. Up here we've got weekly clean, for example. These are things that need to be done on a regular basis, not necessarily every day. So there's no need to be sitting around waiting, because if you're waiting for something, you can always go to one of these checklists and find something to do. You can always just be cleaning. Another big waste is motion, which is basically just moving around more than you have to. Now, if I have to sand some doors, if I got to walk into the next room, pick up the door, sand it, and then take it back, that's just wasted motion. So whenever you start something, try and set something up, try and set up your materials and your equipment so you have to move as little as possible. So you take your door, sand it, put it on the other rack. Take your next door, sand it, put it on the next rack. Try and do this on site, try and do it in the shop. Whenever you're doing, be conscious of how much you're moving so you avoid moving around more than you need to. Ideally, it's nice to have a nice little kind of circular flow of work, or a U-shaped, what they call production cell, where basically you're just going like this. You can set up the paint booth like this as well. And you're almost not moving. So always try and set up your work to avoid excess motion. Another type of motion commonly on installations is walking back and forth to the truck. That's why we have special racks So we set up everything on site that we need, so we're not walking back and forth to the truck. We have all the tools right there, easy reach, do everything you need to do, and then put it all back in the truck. So another big waste, particularly in the renovation industry, is transportation. Yeah, I've been on jobs with some contractors and they start complaining and they go, you know, frick, I've been back and forth to Home Depot 5 times today. And my thought is, I don't say it, but if you've been back and forth to Home Depot 5 times today, then you're just being dumb, because you should have brought what you need when you came this morning. So avoiding driving back and forth to Home Depot, driving back and forth to the shop to pick stuff up is a really important way of avoiding waste. And for that reason, we've developed special checklists that are for cleaning the truck. These checklists have instructions for refilling all the bins, all the supply bins in the truck, precisely so we don't have to drive back and forth. When we go somewhere, we unload things in the morning, we have everything we need with us. Similarly, we have a long checklist for installation. So every time we go out to an installation, we go through this checklist, got all the tools and equipment we need, every little detail, precisely so we don't end up going back and forth more than we need to. Obviously, we need to drive to the job, but we want to drive there, do what we have to do, and then come back. Any back and forth more than that is just waste. It's transportation waste. So we always want to avoid that. That's why we follow checklists. One of the biggest wastes identified by Tachiono is rework. Essentially, fixing things that weren't done right the first time. Now, I went over that pretty carefully in the section on quality, but I'll just say it again. If we see a little problem here, a little hole, that could take us a minute just to fix it right now. If we have to come back or go back to a job site and fix a little hole or a drip or something afterwards, we can lose a whole day. So losing a whole day to fix a problem, which could have been fixed in 5 or 10 seconds if we caught it earlier, that's just waste. So any type of repairs or rework because it wasn't done properly the first time is a terrible form of waste. Another form of waste is over-processing. Basically, over-processing, it just implies doing more than you have to in any given step. If a cabinet door needs 4 coats to get a nice smooth finish and you put 6 or 7 coats, that's just waste. It's over-processing. One of the biggest elements of over-processing I find is sanding. When you're sanding a door with the equipment I've got set up, it should be very quick. So I'll just quickly go through this. It should be, you take your door, put it down, so you should be able to do a sanding on a cabinet door in about a minute. Sand it, do a quality inspection, put it on, do about a minute. What a lot of guys do is they'll sit there and they'll just go like this. Yeah, I've seen some guys, they'll spend 10 minutes on one cabinet door. That's over-processing. You're not actually making the door better by over-sanding it, and in fact, a lot of times you're making it worse. If you over-sand it, you run the risk of cutting through the edges, damaging it, wrecking the paint. So over-processing sometimes is not just waste, you're actually damaging the door. So as I said, just do what needs to be done, okay? You're not making things better by wasting time on them. Another one of the big wastes is overproduction. You might think if you do things in big batches, it's more efficient. But in fact, if you overproduce, you're just wasting time and space. For example, these are little blocks that we use on installations, and we have a box of shims and things in the truck. When we come back from a job, we refill that box. But I never want anybody to refill these more than a box. So we've got 3/4 inch shims here. We have maybe 20 little pieces. Once this box is full, stop cutting pieces. You may think, gee, we got a whole bunch of scraps. I'm going to cut, say, 500 of these little pieces, and it'll be really efficient because I can cut them really fast. The problem is, once you start getting more than one box of each of these little pieces, they just get all over the place and they make a mess, and we don't need them right away. So never produce more than you're going to need in just a short amount of time. There again, it's just the just-in-time idea. We've got enough so we can restock from 1 or 2 kitchens. We don't want more. We don't want to cut hundreds of these and just have them lying all over the place. So avoid overproduction.